Welcome back to the Doulas No Squat Book Club. This week we're discussing Deliver, a concise guide to helping the woman you love through labor. We'll be covering topics including the range of emotions in labor and how to help dad take care of himself while still being a supportive partner. Thank you so much for joining us today, and let's get ready to hear from some doulas who know squat.
Chapter 9, range of emotions in labor. Okay, so what I had listed out on here, which I found to be very accurate, is starting with excitement, then getting nervous, then becoming impatient, becoming inwardly focused during contractions, needing support, susceptible to suggestions, both encouraging and discouraging, and then facing doubt and feeling defeated. And then victory. Does that sound pretty accurate to you? Obviously, not all labors are the same, but if we're looking at like an overall, if we were to average it out.
I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I really like about knowing that, the reason why it's really good to know that is because, as you can see, impatience comes at the end of inactive labor. You can see where that's bad timing. Where you start getting really impatient, and I see that so often. When is this baby gonna come? Well, we're getting there, and I think it's just the length of time that is inactive labor. It can be a very long time. For some people, they don't really notice it, and so they don't experience that because they were in inactive labor and didn't know.
That's why I always want, like, any opportunity you have to just like sleep through inactive labor, take it because it'll help alleviate that impatience.
Yeah, sleep, ignore it, distract yourself, pretend that nothing is happening. I mean,
One of my favorites, like I know a lot of times it's like watch a movie. One tip that I've seen that I love is bake the baby a birthday cake.
cute, and then you get to eat it. That's amazing because then they get the birthday cake through the breast milk. That's pretty adorable. Yeah, that's we try, and we talked about this a bit in the last book club of just like how difficult it can be to get people to ignore early labor as much as possible because it is exciting. But clearly I did way too good of a job with that with my she really took it to heart.
I mean, you have one end of the section and the other end.
So I was like, how do you do this? Like, and they never, and then she's like, hey. It was literally her husband finally called me and was like, so I know that they're still only 30 seconds apart and I can hear her in the background. I'm like, oh, she's not in early labor. She's in transition, like active labor out the window. Anyway, so then becoming inwardly focused during contractions is generally an active labor thing. Some people do become inwardly focused and they are still in inactive labor. Normally that's when we see what we call a floaty baby, which is why I'm so engagement position happy. Because if you're mentally ready to move on to the next stage, but baby is still up high, sometimes you can actually mentally move on to the next stage of labor, but your body isn't there yet because the baby's doing his or her job. So can happen, but you can visually see it. Like if the baby bump is still up here and they're starting to show signs of going into active labor, they can say, okay, do you feel comfortable trying Walter's position? Because that'll generally move a baby down quite a bit, and we want your body to catch up with where your brain's at. Needing support and susceptible suggestions, both encouraging and discouraging. That's generally, to me, a sign that we're moving on to transition. There's like a ramp up almost that we almost feel a little nervous about when we start getting close to it. Did you experience that in your labors? You didn't express it out loud at the one that I attended. I'll say that.
I don't express much out loud during active labor.
No, I pretty much just breathe. Just a lot of, which is great. It was ideal.
I mean, as far as the like ramp up to transition, I do like notice like at like right around that transition time is like the like, oh my god, is this going to end? It's that like you reach the peak and you're like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah, I don't know how many more times I can reach that peak. Which is when I generally start to shift my verbiage to we're doing this one at a time. We're not thinking about how many times can I do this. We're gonna blow a contraction away when it's done, and we're gonna focus one at a time. And then the mantra that I've noticed works a lot with a lot of different people is saying this one contraction will not overcome me. We're not thinking about the next one. We're thinking about this one, and this one is manageable. And we do this one at a time. I experienced it in my first, and as far as I remember, because remembering your own birth story, I didn't with my son, but I don't think I was in transition for more than 5-10 minutes. The whole labor was 2.5 hours, as far as I'm aware. I'm sure I had an active labor that I was unaware of, but I went from my water broke to the baby was born in 2.5 hours, and my contractions didn't even start immediately with my water breaking.
Yeah, I was like just this past week, I was writing out my birth story from my last labor, and I was like thinking about the timelines of when things happen. I'm like, that can't be right. Like that was way faster than it felt like it was.
Fast. Yeah. My second labor, it felt fast because my first one was 33 hours, which is where I was mentally was gonna be. And then when I started pushing, I actually was completely unaware of it because in my brain I was like, it's only been for the very beginning of this, and I disassociated almost, like kind of went somewhere else. Because I was like, it's just so intense to do for so long, and I thought that I had just misremembered my first birth. I was like, man, when they say you forget. No, labor is just very different. Whole own self different. I was completely unaware that I had started pushing. Thank God Chelsea noticed. Maybe not. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate that she noticed because I could have just caught my own baby in the tub instead of having to give birth on a hospital bed. But thanks, Chelsea. Just kidding. Yeah, so I feel like this is really accurate. The feeling self-doubt and feeling defeated, I find that comes right close to push time, like really close to push time. And I don't know why that's almost like a universal thing. Sometimes people with epidurals don't experience it. I've noticed that. And I'm wondering how much the epidural is really interrupting their hormones, like we're supposed to experience that. It has to serve a purpose of some kind because it is so commonly experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of purpose it's serving, but it's like so universal. Like I've like I had a client before that was like, I really want you to tell me, like I might get to this point where I'm like I know I'll get to the point where I'll think that I can't do it any longer. But if I'm like really close to the end, I want you to tell me that because I'll just push it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, more than likely that will be the case. Like the point in which you feel like you can't do this anymore, you're
unstuck.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that they put that rule on for pain medication. Of like generally when people finally ask for it, they're so close to done that now hospitals have started not giving it necessarily. They want to check you and see where you're at, because if you're close enough to pushing, by the time it actually works, it didn't really help. And so and some hospitals have started taking that into consideration. It depends on where you go. Everywhere practices differently. But I was taught in Bradley to view that as a positive thing. Once you start feeling at your lowest, that's the most exciting thing because you're almost done. So with my first, when I hit that low point, first I'm a Christian and I'm very religious, and so I was like, I need prayer. Everyone in this room around me, Mom, go pray. And so she did, and then I turned to my husband and I said, I want to say I can't do this, and so to me that's great. Like, I'm almost done. And so he was like, I'm glad that you knew that, because that's really helpful. To me, it's almost a strength growing thing though. Like when you hit that low point and then you push through it and do it anyway, you grow your own strength reserves and become a stronger person mentally. I've just noticed like my clients they have grown into different people when they experience that low and then mentally say, and I'm going to do it anyway. It's just really cool to watch. It's like the strength of motherhood. And I'm not saying that you don't have that if you don't experience that. Don't take it that way. But it's really cool to watch people experience it and the empowerment that comes from overcoming your own mind.
I feel like no matter how your labor progresses, the like labor itself is just like something that can change you.
Yeah. And whatever that looks like, in whatever form of birth that you have, it changes you.
It's just like it's this like gateway into motherhood. We are like designed to change into like a new person when we give birth.
Yeah. I love that phrase when they say the birth of a baby also births a mother. Two people are born that day. And honestly, it changes everybody who experiences it. I come out of births a different person all the time. There's all kinds of different emotional highs and lows and strength things that I didn't know that I could do, especially those really long ones. Like, man, I didn't know I could stay up for 56 hours straight. I think I've had 3 hours of sleep. And I've been like actively supporting birth for that long. How cool is it that my body can do that? And it can. Like, it totally can.
And this is the point that I get really concerned with Kristen's well-being.
Time more than we think. And labor is such a great way to learn that and learn your limits and then push them further. And it's really cool to see people do that. I think that, there is a huge thing to be said about recognizing that strength, that perseverance, and growing in that way. And I think that when you experience that low, it to me it feels like intentional suffering. But everyone gets their own opinion. That's just me. Okay, so that was motion and labor. Did we miss one? Is there one that you see that was not listed that we just talked about? For me, no. That's pretty much it.
Other than what you added to the list, victory.
Yeah, there is. I do want to say that when you reach the 10 centimeters, it's very exciting and victory. Like, great job. We're done with phase 1. Now it's time for phase 2. Pushing does not get enough attention in our prenatal education. It's half of it, y'all. Like, we gotta pay more attention to push. But yes, victory, focus, freaking focus on that pushing.
Or just, let your body push the baby out.
Which is where I'm saying internal focus. Could have rephrased. And keep that nice relaxing music on. Okay, so then it's talking about like needing encouragement. Recognize that as the support people that you are the rock. This is not the time that you get to have like any kind of emotional breakdown. Like, this is when, like, man, that's rough. Is basically like, you are the rock, is the advice that she gives. Do you agree with that?
I mean, well, yeah, you should bring your own breakdown into that equation. You need to keep your composure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like from the doula standpoint, you are the rock for both the birthing person and their partner or any other support person that they may have in the room. They're looking towards the professional, that like your reaction to things, to kind of gauge their reaction to things.
Yeah, moms will look at me to see if I'm freaking out, and dads will look at me to see if I'm freaking out. And if my face is calm, that visually calms them. Like I can feel it, I can see it where they go, she's not upset. So we must still be good, which to be perfectly honest with you, I'm never gonna lose it. So like, and I've been in some pretty bad birth situations. And so I know I can say that for a fact that like, I just don't, that's part of my job. It's part of your job as a doula to stay calm regardless. But like, as the partner, the support figure, the mom helping your child give birth or whomever, it is about you, but it's also really not. So if you're going to have a tough time, it's always okay to step out of the room. It's always okay to say, I need a moment to myself. And if, the mom says, no, I need you, hand, sorry, I'm so sorry. But yeah, you can't then have your breakdown in the room. Sorry.
That's like, it's kind of an unfortunate aspect to the doula role, having to lock down those emotions for the benefit of your client.
In your car later.
But I mean, that's where it comes really important to have your doula network. It's like you need to be able to have at least one other person that is like a person that you can talk to about all of this. Like, have it in your paperwork that you have this person that you can talk to about this.
Get permission. Yeah. And details, like our paperwork has it to where I can talk to the birth team. I can talk to people who are in KC Women's Ministry about my clients. So I can sit down with Jaime afterward and give her names and details and like specific information, and I can completely unload and she completely understands, and vice versa. Which is also really helpful for continuity of care because we do different things. I'm a doula, she's the lactation. So especially if we've got the same client, that's just useful, to be able to talk about stuff. It makes it more our support better and our information more accurate. But as far as me taking care of myself, if I have secondary trauma from a birth situation, or if I experience trauma in a birth myself, people don't necessarily always treat doulas the way that they should. And there's only so much standing up for yourself that you can do before you get kicked out. And so if your whole point is to stay there and you decide that you're going to continue to stay in a situation where you're not being treated properly, you might have some trauma from that and be able to talk to somebody about it. But you can't lose it in the birth space. That's not where you do it. I'm so sorry, but as much as our culture is moving toward authentically reacting, not there.
In the birth space, it's not your place,
right,
for your breakdown. It's their place for their breakdown if they need it, and you need to be able to for them to lean on you.
You need to be a source of grounding for them, so that they can experience all of their true emotions, which allows their hormones to flow, which allows their labor to process as it's supposed to. And anything that's a hindrance to that needs to be taken care of, possibly removed or worked through, and then enough so that you can continue with the labor. I've had situations where mom is experiencing getting really tired, for example. I mean, you can get tired in birth, and that can be really off-putting to the family members. I've never seen my wife, my daughter, whomever, in this much pain and this much exhaustion. And it can really unsettle the team. And you can say, hey, this is not unsettling for me. I'm going to stay here. You guys go get some food, go get something to drink, use the bathroom, and I need y'all to talk and rally and come back. And we're just gonna she and I are going to do it, And of
Mhm.
course I'm upset that she's that tired. Of course I don't like seeing people in that much pain. At this point, she's one of my best friends,
Mhm.
That's part of being a doula. And you have to be strong enough and have worked through your own personal trauma enough that you can do that for long periods of time, sometimes repeatedly. Sometimes the family needs to have multiple breaks depending on how long this birth is. And they rallied and they came back and she had a beautiful vaginal birth. And that's just how it goes, She actually wants to be a doula now herself. I'm very excited. She just reached out and told me, she's like, hey. I was like, I remember all of you. I
You're
remember,
my family now.
I remember you, I remember your husband, I remember your baby, I remember you had a gam that came and she was adorable. Tell you your birth story. She's like, I want to be a doula now. I was like, oh, thanks. Information. That's how you join me. We're all insane. Come join my circus. Yeah, I do agree with that. And I know that that's harsh. And I know that we're not a society of harsh truths anymore. But that is just true. It's a hard profession.
I mean, it kind of defines the job.
Yeah. You have to be mentally tough. You have to do your own mental work. It's not an option. It is not something that you can do. You cannot go into a birth and make it about you.
I mean, like, that is not to say that you need to bottle it up until the next time that you end up in the same situation, and then it's just like,
That's the opposite of what I mean.
yes. Yeah,
No, exactly.
no, you didn't.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
just like,
That's what you got from what
No.
I said. No.
no, I'm just like, just clarifying,
Yeah, just in case someone.
just in case someone,
Good.
because it's like, because we have talked about, like, you need to be able to unload after the fact.
Yes.
You should not keep that bottled up indefinitely.
No.
But it's just in the space at that time. That's when you take a deep breath
And you continue on.
Yeah.
And then you process it.
yes.
And you should never be walking into a birth where you haven't processed the last one,
Mhm.
or where you haven't processed your own, or where you haven't processed something. There are all kinds of triggers. I mean,
Mhm.
you need to have well processed your life at all times. It's good to be in therapy as a doula. It just is. Things are going to be said to you. You're going to interact with different personalities. You're going to be in different situations that can bring up, and it's not okay to take out your trauma in a birth space.
And even if your trauma is from your own,
Often it is.
You need to work through that
Mm-hmm.
before you ever go into another person's birth space.
Yep. Okay. Final question for chapter 9. How do you encourage the family to take care of themselves in labor spaces?
To take care of themselves, I mean, like, they need to, like, one is practicing advocating for themselves, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Being comfortable with the idea of just being able to state what you're okay with and what you're not,
Mm-hmm.
in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the role play that we may do for advocacy during prenatals, to having them practice that,
Mm-hmm.
and just practicing saying what they need.
Yep. Exactly. Nailed it. And then I always like to tell my dads, hey, you're about to be taking care of this baby while she takes a nap. I need you to be well rested and fed and backroomed enough that you can hold a baby for 2 hours while she's sleeping. And that tends to help. Suddenly they'll start actually taking care of themselves. It's hard because, like, they've never seen, most of the time, their partner in so much pain and so much tired and so much internal focus, not responding. It's a different person. You do. You become a different person during labor.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times they haven't experienced that before, and it is off-putting, and so they feel the need to help, which is amazing. Good job. But you can't help to the fullest extent if you let yourself get run down.
Yeah, I mean, like, that even applies to the doulas. Like, don't let yourself get so run down that you can't support the client. And that also comes into play with scheduling too. Do not overschedule yourself with births. So you're not like having 4 births in a week.
Yeah, man, don't do it. I full disclosure, we all grow, we all learn. I did do that. Not 4, it was in 2 weeks. And it just wasn't a good idea, you know? You need to give yourself time to recover physically. You need to give yourself time to recover mentally. I had a birth that had a horrible outcome, I mean, as bad as you can imagine. And then 3 days later, another client went into labor, and thankfully she was a doula and knew what had happened and wanted me to come anyway. And she was just like, we're going to use this as a healing process for you. But had that not been the case, I would have needed to have somebody else go in and step in, call in a backup, and how devastating that can be for to be supported not by their doula, you know. And we do our best to make it to every birth, and so you never want to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to serve your clients to the best of your ability. You're not serving yourself, you're not serving them. You know, I see these, you know, these people that are saying they're like, I went to 3 births this week as like a look at me. I'm like, man, how well could you have done that physically?
And like sometimes the back-to-back births can happen. Like you do
Nothing you can do about it, and you do your absolute best. But living that life constantly and on purpose is, to me, wow. I mean, I just can't imagine what kind of physical shape I would need to be in to be able to do the many marathons and just like expecting that nothing's going to happen that I need to mentally process before my next birth. That's rough to me. I'm sure there's lots of doulas that do it successfully, but that's, to me, I see that and I think, man, that's rough.
I mean, like, even if they were all perfect births, you have nothing to process between, it's just really rough on your body to like, because like, you're not going to have back-to-back births that are all like daytime hours. It's going to be maybe you've been supporting someone all night, and then if you have a back-to-back birth like 12 hours later or 8 hours later, and like you need to physically recover as well as mentally.
Yeah, that's really rough on your body. I did live that life once, and I learned from it. It ended up being okay, but I could see that if it was something that I did consistently, that was going to be an issue. And the reason that it happened is because a bunch of my clients went overdue and then didn't meet their due date, and so they all gave birth at once. So then I had a nice long break to process and not, you know, and sleep. So that was good. But I saw it that, man, if I had to turn around and birth from there, I just could see myself experiencing compassion fatigue, you know, and we just don't want to get there. If you're experiencing compassion fatigue as a doula, you need to take a break. But that's a whole other thing. And not talking about taking care of yourself. Team, but you see our point.